It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Flying down from Nova Scotia today.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds.
I have a dream that all men are created equal.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation? We are back once again, and you are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Captain and Skaggs. How you doing today, Skaggs?
Good. It's a windy Saturday night. You know, we are
It's chilly.
Yeah, it is chilly in the Northeast. Got a couple things to talk about, a couple things that were swept under the rug. The
Yes.
past 2 weeks, maybe we didn't really get much of a chance with our own schedule to talk any politics.
Yep.
So here we are on a Saturday night talking about the news, doing it for you. We're giving up our Saturday. All right, the captain ain't really giving up his Saturday.
I ain't giving up shit, baby. I worked all day.
There you go.
So
Working all night now.
yeah,
as well.
the 5 to 9 starts off with I don't want to do this without spilling any. Ooh. This episode's not brought to you by, but it is fueled by Cutwater.
Tequila Paloma.
If anybody's ever had some Cutwaters before, they know they are quite the dangerous little drink.
Is that actually? I don't know what that is. What is a cut water? Is that an alcoholic drink or
Yeah.
It has water in the name, so I'm confused.
so you're already you already axed it. You don't want it.
Yeah, I normally don't drink that.
So this is the only like flavor that I like, the Tequila Paloma. It is 7% alcohol, Cutwater tequila with naturally flavored grapefruit soda. Grapefruit and tequila is a Paloma. It's probably my new summer drink because it's quite tasty. And for all you soy boys out there, it's gluten free.
Ooh, fancy. So Biden must drink those.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. I don't like those.
That's why I went.
That's why what? That's why what?
That's why he fell, ass over head on his bike today.
Yeah, man. I mean, that was funny. That was, that was something interesting. It's funny, being someone who rides their bike. I'm somewhat of a cyclist, and hang out with a couple guys who are cyclists. Like, it's funny just to watch him make like a stupid cyclist mistake, which is not take your foot out of the strap and go to like stop and just tip over. Once you're tipping over on a bike like that, there's no stopping it. You're going over.
You can't get your foot out in time.
Yeah. And normally people, like real cyclists, will wear like shoes that clip into the pedal. So like you can't just, the shoes will really be stuck on the pedal so you could get the backswing. I mean, so that's even more easy to fall over with. He wasn't even wearing that. He just had like a strap that goes over your shoe. He wasn't actually like laced into it or anything. He's just an old man. A feeble old man.
One thing I gotta say though, I was so happy to see him
fall over
in like not fall over. That, I mean, what the internet has created from this has been gold. My entire personal story is just different memes. Do you see Joe Rogan's one?
Yeah, he posted that himself too.
Bro, with Joe Rogan
him,
sitting next to him on the ground, that was hilarious. But he was wearing shorts and like a workout tank top and a t-shirt. And I always said this about Trump. Like, do you think like at night when it's all said and done, like this guy gets into a pair of like ratty old jizz stained basketball shorts and a fucking Cheeto stained tank top, and he sits back in his bed and he's like, come on, Melania, let's hang out, baby. Like you always see him. Yeah. He only wears two things: the blue suit or his golf outfit, which is the polo, the hat, and the black pants. You don't see him in anything else.
Yeah, I always envision Trump like when it's bedtime, he gets back into a new suit. And he goes to sleep in a full suit. Yeah, bedtime suit. Yeah, like a new one. Yeah, he takes off the polo and the khakis and he puts on a suit. And then he goes to bed with Melania. And she's in like a full gown, when she goes to bed, of course, obviously.
Oh, yeah, but like a gown you could wear to like the ball. Yes. You know what I mean?
A wedding gown or something like that. It is It is bizarre, man. Just the way like these politicians and people in government dress. Me and you wear t-shirts and shorts and
It's
jeans.
a shirt with a fish on it today.
Yeah, you know, like I don't know. We just wear normal clothes like normal people. I mean, like these people, like they never are out of fancy clothes. It's just It's just
like
weird.
what does Nancy Pelosi wear? Like, does she go to bed in like yoga pants and a tank top or something? Like,
Ugh, I don't
you know,
even
she
think about
drinks
that.
all day. She can't be sitting in a pantsuit all night at the bar. You know.
I don't know. I really don't think.
I have
think,
a question for you.
Go ahead. What?
I have a question for you. So I was watching The Last Kingdom, and King Edward, there's a scene after he bangs his new whore, and people come into the room and they start dressing him, right?
Yeah.
And he's a king, and kings got dressed. And, you know, do you think that Donald Trump has someone to dress him?
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, he has a
Me too.
stylist, I'm sure, like a
no,
wardrobe
stylist
specialist.
is one thing.
a wardrobe
a stylist is
specialist,
one
though.
thing.
That pick. Like,
I'm
you think he
talking
picks-
about.
Yeah, I'm just saying. What do you think? He picks out like his
No.
suit for the day? No,
No,
he
no,
has like
I know
a
he doesn't.
consultant, and yes, they're
Yeah.
probably there like throwing
Yes.
the tie over and
putting
tying it
his
for-
putting
and
his
he's there like
socks on
this.
over his feet. Yes, he lays back and puts his legs up, and they put his socks on. They put his pants on. I 100% believe somebody dresses that man.
And in the spirit of fairness, I'm sure you know Joe Biden does
Oh,
the same
yeah.
exact thing. You
Yeah.
know, we are fair
there's-
here. You know,
Yeah,
not to give
Klaus
Trump
Schwab.
too much.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, well yeah.
Yeah.
Klaus Schwab probably has like people with like collars on.
yeah.
doing it for him.
Shock collars. Get in here, slave.
Yeah, as he puts on that Darth Vader suit that he has.
Yeah.
You will eat the bugs, and you
Yeah.
will put on my clothes. Yeah, man, I don't know. These people are weird. It really is bizarre. It almost shows how they are disconnected from
Oh,
the
yeah.
rest of the world and just the rest of the way
Do you-
people are.
there's a picture that's been floating around like Truth Social and stuff of Feinstein on like her first day of office, and then like the most recent picture of her, and like on the left it's this vibrant, beautiful young woman all dressed to the nines, her hair is nice, and then to the left is this decrepit horror film monster that she has become.
The Crypt Keeper.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like if you ever needed a photo for term limits, this is it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I believe it though. At the same time, how stressful can even just doing a show
Oh,
covering all
God.
this shit be
Yeah.
sometimes, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, imagine being one of these lizard
Being in it.
people in
Yeah.
the role. Yeah, man. I don't know. So we got a couple topics. We didn't even really get into what the topics are.
we were just too excited
Yeah.
about Biden.
Biden falling over on his bike. So we'll talk a little bit about the Ministry of Truth, otherwise known as the Department of Homeland Security Disinformation Governance Board. We did mention it a couple times on the show. Most people know exactly what it was about, why it's called the Ministry of Truth. Captain found some interesting documents on it that kind of confirmed some of our fears that we had about it. So that's one of the topics we're going to talk about. I wanted to talk about the Defense Production Act and some of the uses President Biden has used it for recently, and just the act in general. I wanted to touch a little bit about that. It's going to be a little interesting. I know you got a couple of things you wanted to.
Yeah, I wanted to. I mean, we need to at least cover. Excuse me, this is gonna have me burping all night. The blatant lie of Biden talking about how strong the economy is, and how we're in the best position this country's been in since World War II, which is, I mean, I get somebody writes this man's speech, but like, how can that person even believe this shit? I understand Biden having, like, as a politician, you can't say anything negative about your policies. It's not politically correct for them to do it. But this one, I can't, there's only got to be maybe 10% of the population that's actually buying this shit. And then some stuff about Elon Musk. He's a pretty popular figure nowadays.
Yeah,
So
he is. There's certain moments we've covered them on the show where just like they say things that are just so disconnected from reality that they're shocking. Sometimes I remember we
Yes.
covered it when Jen Psaki just could not get the words out of her mouth to say that like exercise and eating healthy is good for you. I mean, that was like shocking that they couldn't just say that. So there are things like that definitely that just make no sense. So they should be pointed out. Definitely. Yeah, man. So let's get into it. Let's get into the first topic. So you found
the
this,
Ministry
Cap.
of Truth.
Yes,
Yeah.
you found this. Captain did some
Yep.
investigative journalism and some investigative research. and he found some documents that were, I mean, this was, I guess, in a Senate hearing as well, but it was from, who were the two guys who went after, who published this? It's two Republicans. I have their name on the documents here. I will show you the documents. So it's Senator Chuck Grassley, I believe, and Senator Hawley. They came across from a whistleblower some documents from the Ministry of Truth, or the Department of, whatever, Disinformation Governance.
Yeah. I think the code name for it was DGB.
DGB, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with
the acronym, sorry.
Yeah, the Ministry of Truth Act, thing everybody calls it. It's a reference to George Orwell's 1984. There was a department in the government in England called the Ministry of Truth. They essentially decided what was true or not, and so this is the censorship bureau, I guess you could call them another word.
And to interject before we get into this, little white pill, little red pill, people, whoever's listening to this, I know you're already in agreement with us, but when you start feeling like we're not winning, or like there's no progress being made, or at any day Big Brother is going to be knocking on the door or something, they had to shut down the DGB because of widespread outrage from we the people. We, once they came, my God, this is going to kill me all day. Once we realized what they were attempting to do, we knew exactly what it was about. And you got out there, and it's not that you need to get out there and protest and riot. Start talking about it on social media. Start fighting against it. Start correcting other people when you see them online. Do your research, of course, as obviously, but because of the way we the people took to social media and the outrage we had, and we let our representatives know, they shut this shit down. Yeah, they're going to start it back up.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about it later. Yes, but a little bit of a white pill here. We gained some ground. Biden and Kamala aren't going to get kicked out of the White House tomorrow. Gas isn't going to come down to $3 a gallon anytime soon, but small victories like this count. So go ahead.
I agree with you 100%. I will caution people later on. You'll see what I have to say. But let me share the document here for everybody. See, I think a point also is you need proof sometimes, right, to back things up. Like, we can say whatever you want here, and you might believe me and Chris because we're being honest with you. As best as we can be honest. We don't unless we've been lied to. You know what I mean? So this again is from Hawley and Grassley, and it is a letter to the Alejandro Mayorkas. He's a Department of Homeland Security Secretary. A lot of this is fluff. I'm going to go to page 3 where it starts to get interesting. So now this is Hawley and Grassley writing to Mayorkas of their concerns. And they write in here that documents also suggest that the department has been working on plans to operationalize its relationships with private social media companies to implement its public policy goals. For example, we obtained draft briefing notes prepared for a scheduled April 28th, 2022 meeting between Robert Silvers and Twitter executives Nick Pickles, head of policy, and Yoel Roth, head of site integrity. The notes are marked TBC, to be continued, I believe, is what I'm assuming that means, TBC.
It was a difficult read.
Yeah, it was. And it is unclear whether the scheduled meeting actually took place. The briefing notes frame the planned meeting between Silvers and the Twitter executives as an opportunity to discuss operationalizing public-private partnerships between DHS and Twitter, as well as to inform Twitter execs about DHS work on MDM. I think that's misinformation, something like that.
Yeah.
What they're referencing. With the government, everything's always like acronyms and whatnot. It's very frustrating sometimes, including the creation of Disinformation Governance Board and its analytic exchange. According to the whistleblower allegations, Nina Jankowicz may have been hired because of a relationship with executives at Twitter. Consistent with these allegations, Silver's briefing notes state that both Pickles and Roth know Jankowicz. A recent DHS strategy document further discusses efforts to empower partners to mitigate MDM threats. The document states that in certain cases, federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial or non-governmental partners may be positioned to mitigate MDM threats based on their capabilities and authorities. DHS theorizes that by sharing information, DHS can empower these partners to mitigate threats, such as providing information to technology companies enabling them to remove the content at their discretion and consistent with their terms of service. Now, remember, this is the letter from the Republican senators to the Department of Homeland Security secretary. I want to backtrack real quick and pick a couple of names out here so people might not know. So earlier in this, the meeting was proposed to be set up between, like the Department of Homeland Security and one of the guys, Yoel Roth, who works for Twitter. If you don't know who Yoel Roth is, I'm not sure if you know who he is, Captain.
No, I don't know anybody from Twitter.
So I did some digging on who this guy is. And Yoel Roth is the guy who was in charge of making the call to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? So
okay,
let's put things in perspective.
He's already the inside guy.
The Ministry of Truth is trying to set up a meeting with a person in charge of Twitter who is the same guy who censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which everyone knows now is 100% real, and they censored it because it was going to hurt Biden in the election, etc. So that's not a conspiracy theory. It's right there. So let's go down real quick to the actual letter, because there is evidence here, right? This is from a whistleblower. This is a gigantic document here.
I think it's like 34 pages.
Yeah, 36. I
36.
believe it's on page 18. There's a lot in here. Here we go. So there is a lot in here, and it's the internal paperwork essentially of what the Ministry of Truth is setting out to do. And I read through a lot of it. I really did. It's boring. It's too much to read on a podcast, but a lot of it is funny because it says how we're setting out to do this to protect the people, and in a way that's going to respect their First Amendment rights and their civil liberties and this and that, whatever. It's set out like it's laying out, we're going to like monitor speech, censor speech, put out guidelines on what is, true, what is not, but we're not going to impact the First Amendment. The whole thing is a direct contradiction. They're just constantly contradicting themselves throughout the entire document. Almost as like they're saying like, I'm going to murder you, but I'm going to make sure I don't murder you. That's like the whole language throughout the whole setup of the Ministry of Truth is. So right here is a document in regards to Twitter, them trying to set up the meeting with them. So this is like an overview of the meeting. You will meet in person with Twitter executives Nick Pickles and Yoel Roth, head of integrity, for XX minutes on public-private partnerships, MDM, and countering DVE. The meeting is off the record and closed press. You have previously met with Jessica Herrera Flanagan, Twitter's Vice President of Public Policy and Philanthropy for the Americas. You will be staffed by, it's redacted, so we don't know who they're talking about. Like they're saying who's going to be in the meeting, one of the people, it's not there. Key objectives. This meeting is an opportunity to discuss operationalizing public-private partnerships between DHS and Twitter, as well as inform Twitter execs and about DHS work on MDM, including the creation of the Disinformation Governance Board and its analytic exchange and the department's ongoing DVE work. What else they got here? Nick and Yoel both know DGB Executive Director Nina Jankowicz. Nina Jankowicz is the person who's put in charge of the Disinformation Governance Board. Grassley and Hawley referenced that before, saying, look, there was a relationship here already between some of these people at Twitter and Jankowicz, who's put in charge of essentially the censorship board of the government. Propose that Twitter become involved in Disinformation Board analytic exchanges on domestic violent extremism and irregular migration. Thank Twitter for its continued participation in the CISA analytic exchange on election security. Ask what types of data or information would be useful for Twitter to receive in analytic exchanges or other ways the department could be helpful to Twitter's counter MDM efforts. Participants, Silvers. So it's all kind of redacted here. There's one more interesting page. Won't get that much into it. They lay out their discussion points, what disinformation is, and it's a lot to read here, right? So I won't. Go ahead.
There was some other parts that I read a little bit of where they kept on talking about like domestically. They were presenting it as like, we are going to protect you guys from disinformation, but like in these 36 pages, they were talking about like, we're going to protect you from each other. You know what I mean? Like,
so yeah, I shouldn't have stopped this so quickly, but Let's circle all the way back to our episode about the domestic plan for countering domestic terrorism, whatever the fuck it was called, right? So the last part of this memo, this was leaked by a whistleblower. It says, in June, the White House released the first ever national strategy for combating domestic terrorism. In response, DHS has realigned and dedicated resources to combat domestic violent extremists and would like to have a deeper discussion on our latest assessments. The DHS Office of Intelligence Analysis created a domestic terrorism branch within its Counterterrorism Mission Center to ensure DHS develops the expertise necessary to produce sound and timely intelligence at the lowest classification possible in order to inform our stakeholders. The department established a new Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships to improve the department's ability to combat terrorism and targeted. And then that's the end of it. I mean, if you look all the way back, though, to that episode and to what other people were saying at the time, when this domestic...
Professor Giordano was a big voice in it.
Yes, he was. National Strategy for Combating Domestic Terrorism. Everyone, including us, said at the time, this is the beginning of a push to censor people, political opponents, anyone who talks out against the state or is in opposition to the state. Remember, who was it? The former head of the CIA who named, like Trump supporters, libertarians, anyone who thinks differently than the establishment essentially was on the list. And, we said like they were going to do shit like this. Here it is.
Yep.
Here's a document, whistleblown, that, yes, they were public-private partnership where they're going to tell Twitter what to do, what to censor, what's real,
and who to report,
what's not, who to report. Jen Psaki talked about this. Remember, we covered that too, or 5 points, giving them information. Like they've been out there in the open with this stuff.
I don't know if this isn't with the DGB, but Kathy Hochul with her new gun control laws for the state of New York, we're working with social media companies to flag people who are posting violent behavior. But we don't talk about what violent behavior is. Is violent behavior tweeting, I'm going to kill my teacher tomorrow? YouTube, I'm not killing anybody tomorrow. Or is it, hey, I just bought a new revolver. Look at my new revolver. He's got a gun. Go get him.
Exactly. This also, man, in my opinion, this also confirms what we were saying when we did our episode about Elon Musk buying Twitter and how the fuckery going on there proves that there's some sort of extra
Shady
value to Twitter, right? Besides just money and stock market value and things like that. There it is right here. Here is more evidence that, yes, we were correct. There is
shocking.
There is a way that they can psyop people and control narratives and whatnot, and gather intelligence on people through Twitter. It really is. So my last point here, just to go back to what you were saying before about talking to people about this stuff. It's important, of course, right? Not just on a podcast, in real life, but you're going to sound like a crackpot sometimes.
Yeah.
But you could also then we just gave you some information. All right. I will put the link to this in the bio of the episode. You can show people if they think you're crazy and you're a crackpot. The government is trying to work together with the social media company to tell them what to censor and what not to censor.
Yep.
Go ahead. We're going to say.
And, the censorship is all a one-sided party. I believe on Jimmy Kimmel, Biden said that political opponents should be jailed. I think another person said, I think a senator or a House representative said, if the GOP wins the midterms, we need to start a civil war. And then one of Stephen Colbert's producers was arrested in the House of Representatives for harassing GOP members after hours. And if you are there to harass people, we set the precedent on January 7th that is an insurrection and you should be sent to jail and put in solitary confinement for a minimum of 1.5 years.
Yeah, that was Colbert's crew, right? Like Colbert's crew of, I don't know, actors or whatever, right? We're in there. And, there's more to that story even. They were arrested because they were there illegally without permits and whatnot. Do you know who let them into the building? Adam Schiff left them into the building, right? Adam Schiff left them into the building. That was essentially a propaganda creation, right? They're going to go on to the late night show and have this whole funny skit about January 6th while they're having the January 6th hearings, right? They weren't technically permitted to be there by, whatever stupid rules they have. But Adam Schiff, because that's the game these people play, opened the door and let them in.
So we clearly have a two-tier justice system here. And the problem is these, the DGB and the what was it, the National Strategy Against Countering Domestic, it's so broad. There's if you look at how you counterintelligence against foreign terrorists, well, if you're in this type of a sleeper cell, if you're an extremist, blah blah blah. But now, like, to be an extremist, all you have to do is, ivermectin's real and the election was stolen, and you're considered, you just have an opposite opinion. That's all you need to make an extremist out of you.
Really. I mean, and people warned about this shit back then too, during the war on terror, right? Like Ron Paul was one of the main guys sounding the alarm. Hey, maybe it's not right that we're just like assassinating people with drone strikes without any due process, putting people in Abu Ghraib prison, and torturing them to death, or in Guantanamo Bay. Like, there were a lot of lessons learned the past 20 years, right, by the state on how to torture people and how to target people, that were without following any due process, man. Now they've turned, and most people didn't care. Most Republicans, most conservatives
because
didn't
it was
really
over
care
there.
because it was over there, and you were scared of the fear of Muslim men that are going to blow you up because of what they did on 9/11. But look, a lot of lessons were learned. Now they turn that shit on you, right? So perhaps we should have a more principled stance, which I think most people have started to realize and come around on in terms of like foreign policy and just the behavior of the state, which is obviously fucking insane what they've done over the past 100 years,
So now the DGB continues. It was shut down because of concerns like this. And obviously, I mean, it doesn't, unless you're a complete, leftist loon, you could tell the writing on the wall what the idea behind all of this was. And it's strange to see that, like, you were always able to question the government. Twitter's been around for what, close to 20 years now or something like that. It's been around much longer than I expected it to be.
15 years maybe.
Okay, so almost 20 years, 15 years. And for the first 13 years, first 12 years, you could say and question whatever you want until there was a challenger, until Trump stepped into office, until people started questioning things, until COVID came around, until the election. And now we're so concerned on what people are talking about. So they want to, only dictators, try to silence people and set the agenda. So we got rid of the DGB, but just in, this was, so it's
breaking news from the captain. The captain's breaking a lot of news lately.
So this was on June 16th. We're recording this on the 18th, so it's 2 days old. Just in, White House launches the Online Policy Task Force to curb hate speech. And it is ran by none other than VP Kamala Harris, will spearhead Joe Biden's latest efforts to curb hate speech and illegal activity on social media, unveiling her new Online Policy Task Force. The launch fulfills a pledge Biden made on the campaign trail to convene experts to study online sexual harassment, stalking, and non-consensual pornography, as well as the connection between such abuse and mass shootings and violence against women.
Boy,
I'm
sorry to interrupt you, but man, does that sound like some gaslighting. Online sexual harassment and child pornography and things like that. Doesn't that sound kind of like a lot of the things that QAnon people talk about all the time?
Yeah.
Now the
because
Kamala
we call
Harris
them pedophiles. Yeah.
board is like, we're going to start targeting these sorts of things. Boy, that sounds like some fucking major gaslighting right there.
And it's funny that, Hunter Biden's laptop's just full of that shit.
That
so,
too. Yeah. Right. Maybe she's going to go after him. I mean, they haven't been kind to the laughing lady lately. They've been, like I said, she's been in the Harry Potter broom closet the past month or so. I haven't heard a peep out of her. So maybe this is her goal to get back at old Joe there. Go ahead.
So this, the long-awaited initiative after the mass shootings of Texas and Buffalo involved attackers with histories of online threats and radicalization, reports the Washington Post. But, we let Frank James just post 400 videos on YouTube calling for the death of white people. We see this over and over again. We see issues of extremism and how they turn into violence. Senior White House official told reporters on a call Wednesday evening. Vice President Harris who has worked to address online exploitation through her career, is scheduled to unveil a task force at a Thursday's White House event, which will convene top administration officials as well as survivors of online harassment and civil society experts. Once it launches, the task force will have 180 days to create a set of policies, recommendations for government, as well as recommendations for tech companies. We're getting involved with the tech companies again, schools, and other entities. I'm not against the schools thing, because maybe if the schools see a kid is talking about shooting people online, maybe they should say something. But it's still Big Brother
What
watching.
does it have to do with the government, the state?
Yeah.
Right. Your teacher should be able to call that out. That shouldn't be a state intervention there. That sounds to me like another way to just propagandize children into ideology.
It will also make recommendations for additional research and increasing support for victims. And that's it. So, we talk about how the government, the establishment, is great at marketing strategies. They just rebrand shit. And people, there's a huge memory hole. Nobody remembers what happens a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Nobody even, I could say Frank James to someone, and people, who's Frank James? Well, Rick James' cousin? No, it's the subway shooter from
Brooklyn,
from New York. Everybody wants to pray for all the victims of Buffalo shooting and the Texas shooting, but you don't remember a single victim's name. But you're willing to disarm the country of law-abiding citizens.
So and when all that stuff you were just saying, like if you were oblivious to everything going on, you say like, all right, some of this stuff sounds like a good idea, maybe, right? We don't want psychopath people shooting people up, but people like me and you know, right? Well, how come they don't highlight Frank James compared to the Buffalo shooter, which I'm not even going to say that guy's name.
Yeah.
We see it and we recognize that they don't really care about acts of violence or mass shootings or murder like we do, right? We see both attacks as equally disgusting things for someone to do because violence is awful, especially that sort of violence. Not them, though. They cherry pick which ones benefit them.
Yep.
So, yes,
the perfect
on paper, the words they speak here in what you were just reading sounds nice, but in reality, it's a lie. It's bullshit. It's just a way that they're going to weaponize the power of the state against their enemies. And they're going to cherry pick examples of things that occur that support their narrative, which then rationalize them being able to do this. Go ahead.
So the DGB didn't work out, right? The Disinformation Governance Board. Oh, it took a lot of backlash.
They paused it. I mean, they did say they were going to pause it.
Yeah. Kamala has a task force. This task force is going to do something completely different. We're going to work with tech companies to stop shootings and extremists. The DGB was going to stop disinformation and extremists. See, the extremists are still there on both agendas. It's just completely rebranding the DGB. And to follow up a point that you were saying about, the shooters and stuff, I saw a meme. I might have saved it. I can maybe send it to you later, but give me 1 second. It shouldn't be too deep in here. Uvalde shooter, it's the gun's fault. Kenosha shooter, it's the shooter's fault.
Right. There's
Isn't
no
that funny?
consistency. There's no consistency when a sane, normal person looks at this, be like, oh my God, these are awful situations, right? Across the board. But when it's the state and the corporate press, when they're the ones talking about this stuff, they're picking and choosing, right?
Yeah.
Even who's to blame. You know what I mean? Like, who's to blame? Exactly. It was Kyle Rittenhouse's fault when he shot people, but now it's the gun's fault when the Uvalde shooting, man. Let me ask you a question. What do you think about this, right? Because yes, we said how the Ministry of Truth was essentially put on pause, and now theoretically, I guess you could say they've rebranded it and replaced Nina Jankowicz with Kamala Harris, which is kind of funny because they're both clowns to a certain extent. What do you think about the odds that this is all a red herring, right? Because I read through a lot of this article, and you can too if you'd like. I'll put the link there, like I said. And what do you think the chances are that a whistleblower leaked this? Because a lot of the documents make it sound like we never actually implemented this. It was a proposed meeting. It never happened because people were outraged and they didn't want this to happen. So we put the board on pause and it never happened, etc. Look, a whistleblower comes out and leaks that it never actually happened. I don't know. I mean, I think it is possible, definitely, that outrage of people can affect public policy. But what if they're just trying to literally trick us all into believing that this doesn't exist yet by a whistleblower coming out and manipulating Grassley and Howley into this whole thing right now? Because now people like me and you are here like, look, you see it, here's all the information, we stop them from putting the Ministry of Truth in power.
Oh, this was your counterpoint. Okay.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like, maybe they're like 10 steps ahead and they put
this
this
is
out.
espionage. Yeah.
They put this out to show people, look, this doesn't exist, when in fact it probably does exist. Right. And now you can, maybe say now they've started the public, the PR campaign, how to sell it to people with Kamala, but it already exists. It probably has existed for a long time. I'm talking years probably. And they're just trying to, a red herring. They're trying to blow smoke up your ass. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think of it? That's really the conspiracy angle I'm going for.
Yeah. Well, I completely buy that. The only thing that they're missing is a crisis to happen to say, see, if we had the DGB in place doing its job, it would have prevented A, B, and C. You know what I mean? I think they would have added a crisis, but yeah, compared to me and you, we always say, if two idiots could figure this out, everybody else should be able to. But yeah, you got to give credit. They are 10 steps ahead. And they are good at rebranding stuff, so just like they said, they put it on pause. They didn't put an end to it. They did fire Jankowicz because she was a nut job
on pause.
Yeah. What happened?
Right. They put the PR campaign on pause. Yeah. The actual organization is up and running and has been probably for years. Yeah. The operation has been. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows when it started, but I would believe it's operational, and that this is just to throw us off the trail, put our guard down. And then once we forget about this again, it pops back up with a new name. I've been saying for weeks now, the dumbest thing in the world with the World Health Organization, we're going to rename monkeypox because it's racist. So wait a minute, so the World Health Organization just automatically associates monkeypox with black people?
Right. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. The World Health Organization is the only person that's saying this. You know what I mean? Like
projection. It's the iron law of woke projection, right? They are assuming. When I hear the term monkeypox, I think of a monkey, the animal from the rainforest, swinging from tree to tree. But the World Health Organization, they automatically assume some other racist shit. So now they're saying, right, they have to change the name. It's the iron law of woke projection, dude. It never fails, as I say.
Yeah. And my whole thing is, they're just rebranding monkeypox. When have we ever changed the name of a virus? Because monkeypox has been in existence for a while now. It's not something new. There's been outbreaks before. People have gotten monkeypox. But there was no fear behind the monkeypox outbreak. If people got scared and started buying up bananas and toilet paper like they did for fucking COVID, all we would hear, it would be monkeypox. There'd be a counter on the TV of monkeypox. No one gave a fuck. So what are we gonna do? We're not gonna let this crisis go to waste. We're gonna rebrand it. We're gonna make a new name. It's gonna be a scary name, because you could look up monkeypox and go, oh, there's already a vaccine. Oh, there was an outbreak in the 70s and no one died. Oh, well, there's information on it. I don't need to be afraid of it. Oh, that's not good news. But if we name it pigpox, or it's cyst white male, pox, there's no history of it anymore.
It's a new thing, right? Yeah. It's new. It's novel. It's a novel virus. Yeah. It's scary, right? You're right. Now people, when they go to research it themselves, which was a major thing, obviously, during COVID, right? God forbid you did any research or thought critically yourself, right? Now there's nothing for you to research, right? Because the name is different. Were you really paying that much attention? We didn't really talk much about monkeypox because I didn't want to waste any time on it. You know what I mean? But right? Most people don't really know. And now we'll have another name that will be some scary fucking name. That's a great point,
Cis
man.
white
Yeah.
male, straight white male pox. Yeah.
The toxic masculinity box. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, that's the game, right? Rebrand
Yeah.
stuff. You know, and it's not the first time they've done it with the viruses either. It wasn't one of the strains of COVID. They skipped over Xi,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to offend President Xi of China. So they don't do things, you know, as the science people and whatnot in the, you know, the procedure, like people who stick to procedure, they don't. It's all bullshit. It's all just if it supports them and their agenda and their narrative. That's the only time they ever like have any fucking, you know, principle. Is the only principle they have is power, as we've said a million times on this show. So that's it. If you look at everything they do, it's just power. That's all it is, man. I don't know. You got any other points on monkeypox? That was an interesting point, man. I didn't think of it that way, but that's a great fucking
They're
point.
just rebranding it, just like they're doing with the DGB. It's a task force now. And then the task force will grow to a board. And then the board, you know, the board will be a committee. And then the committee will have executives from Facebook and Twitter on it. But you won't know about that because you'll only hear Kamala talking points. You won't know who's in the meetings she's with, this and that. They've said several times, and I mean since the election, we are working with social media companies. Right. What does that mean? What does that mean? You are getting access to things that you shouldn't be getting access to. You are getting access to things that Facebook and Twitter originally said they wouldn't be sharing with anyone.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
what about all the meetings? What about meetings with Apple and Samsung getting all the access to your phones? They already have it. We know they do, but they don't talk about it. So it could be a meeting with any company. It doesn't just have to be social media. You know, it could be a meeting with the CEO of Zoom. We're going to watch all your Zoom meeting, you know, it doesn't fucking matter.
And if you want to get a little bit into philosophy, right, we could go back to a point that Dave Smith brought up and the famous quote from Benito Mussolini, right, where he defined what is fascism. And he said, fascism is the merger between corporation and state. I mean, and we brought this point up back when they were trying to force a vaccine on everyone. Everyone is well aware of the intertwining of the pharmaceutical companies and the government. But look, here's more intertwining, right? The state and the social media companies, right? That is more, you know, state and corporation merging together to influence people and get things the way they want. That is fascism. It's a literal definition by the guy who was like one of the founders of fascism, Benito Mussolini.
And also, it just dawned on me too. The DGB was talking about domestic terrorism, which is scary. Those are scary words. Right. Oh boy, we're fine. And then when you learn what a domestic terrorist is, you realize, oh, it's an American. It's an American citizen. Yeah, it's an American extremist. Yeah, it could be you. It could be your neighbor. That's scary stuff.
It's Trump supporters. But it's libertarians. Right?
But
it's people who question the vaccine.
But the task force is going after stalkers and violent offenders. Every violent offender gets let out of jail early because of bail reform. But all of a sudden, we're going to have a task force to stop these offenders from doing it virtually. We're going to squash sexual assault virtually before we squash it physically.
Well, that's the thing that's been going on in general. Me and Jimbo the Kid have talked about that a lot on some of the last Slice episodes, of how there is a conscious effort to say that words are violence and actual physical acts of violence are not violence. And it might sound crazy to some people, but that is what's going on. They're trying to normalize that. Mm-hmm. This way, some criminal or some nefarious actor who commits an act of violence in benefit or, you know, of the state, no big deal. Let him out of jail, bail him out. Don't do anything about it. But if you say the wrong thing on social media, you have committed an actual act of violence against human beings, and you should be thrown in jail. They're trying to
hear about these grammar school kids who are being brought up on charges for using the wrong pronouns, and these 12-year-old kids' futures are being thrown away because they didn't use zay, za, beep, boop, bop, bop, whatever the fuck.
Was this in America?
Oh yeah, I don't.
Or is this Canada? What? Is this in America or Canada?
Yeah, this is in America. There was a big fight just recently. There was a vote. There's a couple of states are leaving the school boards and stuff. I didn't think we were going to bring it up, but yeah, I was reading that there's this kid on trial. He's like 12, 13 years old. that like his future is like completely in the balance because he didn't use the proper pronouns and they brought him up on charges. The kid's never going to get accepted to college. Not that he needs it. He's going to have a criminal record. He's not going to get no decent job. You know what I mean? Like all because he didn't, Za said, he said her or he, give me a break.
And as we spoke about in the last episode with Gary and David, like the whole thing is a fucking giant psyop.
Yeah.
Right.
I got to say, hold on. Shout out Gary and Dave. Everyone I've spoken to that has seen the episode, love the two of them.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. A lot of people were like, man, these guys are mad funny. So yeah, that was fun. We'll definitely do something with them again.
What's up, Doom Nation? Does the media got you down? The news, nothing but bad? This administration driving you to drink? Well, the Two Doom Men podcast is super excited to announce we are teaming up with the 13 Stripes Winery. 13 Stripes is a veteran-owned company that makes great American wine. And they are most famously known for their Let's Go Brandon wine. And now, if you use our promo code DOOMED at checkout, you will receive an extra 10% off your purchase. That's DOOMED, DOOMED, to receive an extra 10% off. Come on, Doom Nation. Let's save this country one bottle at a time.
All right, let's move on to the next topic I got here, right? I mean, maybe some people might find this a little bit boring, but I find this interesting philosophically and just in terms of something becoming normalized, right? And that is the Defense Production Act. So if you remember back at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a big to-do, right, about the Trump should invoke the Defense Production Act to make the ventilators, right? Because we need all these ventilators because people are dying of COVID, on and on and on.
We were
right?
killing more of them with ventilators.
Probably something no one ever really heard about before that, right? Like who the fuck had heard about the Defense Production Act? Not many people until that occurred, right? So the current president, has used the Defense Production Act. I believe it was last week. This is from his website, the White House. And President Biden takes bold action to spur domestic clean energy manufacturing. Historic actions include authorizing Defense Production Act to lower energy costs, strengthen power grid, and create good-paying jobs. Today's clean energy technologies are a critical part of the arsenal we must harness to lower energy costs for families, reduce risk to our power grid, and tackle the urgent crisis of a changing climate. From day one, President Biden has mobilized investment in these critical technologies. Thanks to his clean energy and climate agenda, last year marked the largest deployment of solar, wind, and batteries in the United States history, and our nation is now a magnet for investment in clean energy manufacturing. Oh, it's a magnet. That was so clever. There is an interesting point in here I want to bring up when they get to the 3 points. So what is the president do? While President Biden continues pushing Congress to pass clean energy investments and tax cuts, he is taking bold action to rapidly build on this progress and create a bridge to this American-made clean energy future. Today, President Biden's take action to authorize the use of the Defense Production Act to accelerate domestic production of clean energy technologies, including solar panel parts. Number 2, put the full power of the federal procurement to work, spurring additional domestic solar manufacturing capacity by directing the development of master supply agreements, including super preference status. And number 3, create a 24-month bridge as domestic manufacturing rapidly scales up to ensure the reliable supply of components that U.S. solar deployers need to construct clean energy projects and an all-electric grid for the 21st century while reinforcing the integrity of our trade laws and processes. So that last point I read you there, Kat. Anything sound off or interesting to you? Create a 24-month bridge? Reinforce the integrity of our trade laws and processes? What do you think's going on there? Before I get into the meat and potatoes of it, let me ask you.
I honestly, I don't know. I've just been thinking to myself, all this stuff that he wants to do, putting solar panels in place, ramping up the production of clean energy technology and stuff, all that stuff is implemented by using fossil fuel tools.
Yes, that is
All
true.
the meetings that they go to, they use their private jets and their cars to get to. When they're putting up the solar panels, they're using gas powered machinery to put it up. I always find it just so interesting where they think that what do you think they're using to mine the lithium other than enslaved
Backhoes,
children
right.
for the
Backhoes,
batteries?
Yeah, like stuff like that. Yeah, stuff that burns gas. So I wanted to point out the 24, what is it they said here again?
24-month.
24-month bridge. That's not a normal term. What does that mean? Right? All right. So let's go to Forbes.com. What does 24-month bridge mean? Biden to usher in cheap Chinese panels with solar power shakeup. There was mixed reaction yesterday to President Joe Biden's move to institute a 2-year pause on the imposition of additional tariffs and duties on imported Chinese solar panels. The Commerce Department had been investigating allegations of dumping and slave labor by Chinese manufacturers. The administration rationalized its creation of a 2-year safe harbor for Chinese panels as a bridge to help spur construction of stalled U.S. solar power projects. Create a 24-month bridge. So, in essence, what that fancy schmancy language is saying is we're going to buy Chinese solar panels and put
Chinese solar panels.
Slave labor, Chinese produce solar panels, right? We're going to make
China access to our power grid.
Right. And I got that from Forbes.com, by the way, not a right-wing leaning organization or outlet.
RSBN News.
Yeah. That's what this is, right? So, I mean, is it purely a libertarian principle to not have free trade? No, like libertarians are for the most part against tariffs and things like that, which are like taxes on importing goods and trade. But at the same time, this is the most bizarre thing I have ever seen in my life. There is obviously a lot of controversy around Biden and his dealings with China, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now he's using executive order and the Defense Production Act to import solar panels, right? He could theoretically use a Defense Production Act also to increase the production of gasoline so that or in oil so that the price will go down and we're not paying $5 down. But he's not doing that.
Gas is the new ivermectin.
Right. You see what I'm saying here? I mean, I want to go into a little bit of philosophy also behind the act itself, but there's some shady business going on here as well before we even get to the philosophical argument here.
There's something that I noticed. I want to say it was probably in the first part that you read, talking about the creation of clean jobs. Right. He said that, right?
Yes.
What American clean jobs are going to be created by buying this stuff from China?
Right.
Or do we have to wait 2 years before we get these American clean jobs? Or maybe in 2 years, the job will be done and we have enough cheap solar panels from slave labor China and we don't need to make any of these. Is this another empty promise?
Yeah, like, what does that even mean? You're right. Like, what does that even mean? Like, we're waving the magic wand and in 2 years, everything's going to be working out well here. But in the meantime, we're going to buy it from slaves in China. I mean, what does that even mean? There's no details about how they even want to achieve this, with this Defense Production Act. It's bizarre.
Print money, give it to China, pay off China what we owe them that they didn't get paid through the Trump administration, have this huge deal, give them access to our power grid, have a cheaply made Chinese power grid. Okay. And then in 2 years, a few Americans might get some jobs.
Right. How? We don't know because we haven't laid that out yet.
Because because apparently we can't make it's too expensive. What it comes down to, when you have a question of to why are we doing something this way, when you get to a grand scale of things that the president, I won't even say Biden, has to do, it comes down to money all the time. So why do we need to involve China in this production act for the solar panels? Because it would be more expensive to make them here than China. It would be more beneficial to us. It would create more jobs. It would create a bigger industry, but the overall process would be more expensive than just getting them from China.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
That's
man.
why they hated Trump, because Trump wanted people to buy American, build American.
Industry. Right.
Yeah, no more import export. Trickle down economics would have worked if we didn't send all of our business to India and overseas, because it's cheaper labor over there. Therefore, you're a giant company. You go where you're going to get the most product for the cheapest cost, and there's no trickle down economics, because the building that you own on Fifth Avenue is just you, the CEO at the top, who expedites all of your productivity overseas, because it costs $2, 20 cents to make whatever. And all you have in your building is accountants, finance people, assistants and shit.
Not making anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Who are going to make 30, 40, 50 grand a year. Maybe the boss is making 150 grand a year, but you're raking in $1 million a year because you're saving all that fucking money by sending production overseas.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not a very libertarian principle to be against free trade with other nations, but at the same time, we don't control the entire world, and like the way that things operate in China, they're going to use slave labor to make shit, right? So should there be some sort of protectionism to trade? In my opinion, yes, right? And then freedom and free markets within our own society, which we have the limits to control to some extent, at least, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to make a point here I don't really think I've heard anybody made here, and it's about the Defense Production Act itself, right? So what is the Defense Production Act, and what are the origins, right? It was passed in September of 1950 at the start of the Korean War. It was modeled after the War Powers Act of 1941 and 42, which gave FDR sweeping authority to control the domestic economy during World War II. The original DPA gave the president a broad set of powers, including the ability to set wages and prices, as well as ration consumer goods. Though not all of these powers had been renewed, the law has been continually reauthorized by Congress, most recently in the John S. McCain National Defense Authorization Act of 2019. It is set to expire in 2025. Should keep an eye on that. See if it expires.
Wait a second. So 2 years from now is going to be, oh no, it's going to be 2024. Never mind.
Right. So
I was like, so this is going to be finished before the bridge.
Yeah, right. But so again, so what does the Defense Authorization Act do? The current version of the law still gives the executive branch substantial powers. It allows the president, largely through executive order, to direct private companies to prioritize orders from the federal government. The president is also empowered to allocate materials, services, and facilities for national defense purposes and take actions to restrict hoarding of needed supplies to bolster domestic production. The president may also offer loans or loan guarantees to companies subject to an appropriation by Congress, make purchases or purchase commitments, and install equipment in government or private factories. Companies can also be authorized to coordinate with each other, which might otherwise violate antitrust laws. All right. My next point. How many times has the Defense Authorization Act been used? Not a lot until recently. All right. It was used in the Korean War, during the Cold War. That was about it, right? And in the 21st century, they used it once in 2001. Obama used it once in 2011. And then along comes President Donald Trump. He used it once in 2017, and then comes the pandemic. This is where things have gotten out of control. President Trump used it multiple times during the pandemic for the ventilators, which was well known, for the masks, which was well known, etc. 3M, General Electric, Medtronic, a whole bunch of different things. He was giving orders to companies to make things, right, with the Defense Production Act. Now we have President Biden. President Biden has used it for the wildfire crises in California to supplement the supply of fire hoses. Critical mineral supply in March of 2022. He invoked it to increase the production of minerals necessary for clean energy transition. The baby formula shortage, he used it for that, right? In order to make more baby formula because babies are about to starve to death. And now for green energy, what we just talked about, right? He's used it for that. So I'm looking at this philosophically. We are supposed to be a capitalist society. We are supposed to live in an economy that is founded on a free market, according to Nancy Pelosi. Remember what she said? We live in a free market, So what is the opposite of a free market? A command economy, right? Where the government controls what's made, the price, the price you're paid to make it, how much of it is made. Who used to do that? The Soviet Union, right? And it was
I
an
think you made
awful.
this tweet.
Yes,
about
I made this
right?
tweet, right? But this all plays into each other, right? Why was it so famous that they loved our jeans and our peanut butter, like in Stranger Things, right? And that they had shortages? It's because no one person in some office, in some central, in Red Square in Moscow, could figure out that region all the way over there, they need 100,000 pairs of jeans. And that region over there, they need to harvest 100,000 sheep or something like that. Like, it's impossible. No one person could figure out how much stuff needs to be allocated to a certain place. That is why the Soviet Union didn't work, and it collapsed, and people were starving to death everywhere, and they had nothing. We are moving towards that. It is becoming more normalized, where some guy in the White House signs a thing and tells Company A, you have to make this. Company B, you have to make that. Hey, Company
Another
A and B.
slippery slope.
Right. I mean, no, it's a mudslide now, right? It's becoming out of control. And now it's and look, Trump has some of the blame because he started to normalize it because of COVID, and he was under pressure from all that, whatever, etc. But now it's being used for completely political agendas, green energy stuff. This is supposed to be the Defense Production Act. If you want to use your statist like rationale over why there has to be this opt-out clause, emergency, because of a war and the country is in threat by Nazi Germany obliterating us, and if we don't make tanks, we're going to die. All right, I guess that kind of makes sense. But now we're using it to make ventilators and solar panels and baby formula. Everything is falling apart, dude. Everything. Even just philosophically, we're going to come to a point where the president's going to say, hey, we have to make this today, that tomorrow, this on Thursday. Every day. It's becoming more and more and more.
And there's already shortages. So
we're moving towards a Soviet style economy. And I don't think anyone really recognizes the Defense Production Act, how that's bad. And that is playing a hand in this. It should, in my opinion now, 2025, let that shit go. It should not exist anymore because it's being obviously fucking. I know they won't. All right. We'll be here in 2025 to point out it's being abused. Oh man, I was ranting for a while. Go on. What are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree with you. I see what you're talking about. And also if you put in the shortages and the shipping crisis that there is. So now, I mean, I deal a lot with cars and there's the chip shortage, right? So now what if we need chips to run these solar panels? I don't know how solar panel works. I know it's powered by the sun, but I don't know how you install a massive amount of solar panel. What happened?
Genius. I don't know how a solar panel works. I know it's powered by the sun.
Right. Yeah. But that's as far as my engineering skills go for a solar panel. So now there's already a chip shortage for all the cars, right? So now if we need some type of chip for the solar panels and we use the Defense Act, we're making chips, but we have to send them to the solar panels. Now there's an even bigger chip shortage for the cars. And that's just one example that, I could talk on. So eventually this defense production, this ordering of production is going to create shortages elsewhere because the company isn't producing for its market. If this was a free market, they would be able to produce for the people who need it, not where they're told to.
And who was famous for that? The Soviet Union. Because of all the reasons I said before, there is no one man who could determine who needs what. Only the free market could determine that. You can also use this.
Daddy government wants to determine everything.
This is a failed, and then there are people in government right now, the socialists, right, who are advocating for this sort of stuff, and their eyes are closed, right? They don't want to look at history, how it doesn't work, right? I could give you another example of how this was done recently, right? When we had the Omicron variant, right, that was going crazy, and everybody was getting Omicron. And they wanted to give out those tests, those at-home rapid tests, right? How bungled was the distribution of that? Why was the distribution of that bungled? Why? Because the government bought them all to give them to everyone for free. And what happens once you buy the whole supply of everything and you decide you're going to hand them out one person? It can't be done. It can't be allocated correctly, right? So there was lines down the block, I remember in December, or around the corner, of people trying to get an at-home test. Why? Because they weren't in the stores. Why? Because the government bought them all and determined they were going to decide who gets what and whatnot. Had the free market.
I think I was reading this somewhere. There's a name for it. It's a shortage something that it creates. I think there's an actual term that is called for some type of shortage when this type of production is done. That like if you would just let if you would just let CVS and Walgreens and Walmart produce the at-home tests and put it for sale, it would have been distributed way easily. But since you bought up all of it, you created a shortage elsewhere. I'm pretty sure there's a term for it, but I can't
probably an
remember
economic
right now.
term. You know, there is another example of something they're trying to do right now. That Congress is trying to pass price gouging laws, right, on gasoline. Because I mean, has anybody seen the price of gasoline?
No.
In San Francisco, it's like $10 over here in Connecticut. It's like $5.10 at Costco.
Cost me $95 to fill up my truck.
Right. So now people hear this term, price gouging laws, right? And you might have thought in years past, as I did, right? Price gouging is awful. Gas stations who price gouge, they should be going to jail because that's illegal, right? What I didn't know at the time, I remember during Hurricane Sandy. You remember there was no gas after Hurricane Sandy?
Yeah.
In New York City, and there was this whole thing about price gouging. But at the same time, do you remember there was lines around the block of people lining up to get gas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had there not been any price gouging laws, they could have made the price of gas $15 a gallon. Are you going to go buy $15 gas if you really don't need it?
Right. No, you're not.
You're not, right? So that is going to correct a shortage, right? If you hear right now, Congress is talking about price gouging laws. If they pass some sort of price gouging law that says gas can't be sold for more than $4.50 a gallon, I'm sorry to tell you, there ain't going to be any more gas to be had, right? Because a gas oil company is not going to make gas and then sell it at a loss, right? Because the law of supply and demand and prices will remain, even if the state wants to magically make a law that said it does not. So they're just not going to make it, and they're just not going to sell it. And then what happens? You can't drive your car. You can't go to work, right? You can't produce anything. It becomes a cascading thing of problems that will occur. So on paper, it might sound great. No price gouging, that's bad, but price gouging like will help people ration things that they need or they don't need. I'll be like, hey man, maybe we should do more Zoom meetings and we shouldn't drive to each other an hour to do podcasts in person, right? Because gas is fucking $7 a gallon. You know what I mean? People will think that way. It's a built-in mechanism of a free market. But they're moving away from that. They're moving towards the Soviet-style command economy where they want to control the price. They want to control what's made, who makes it, how they make it. They want to control everything, dude, from fucking Twitter,
the Great Reset,
social media to the price of gas, dude. That's everything. Yeah. They want control of everything. And yeah, you sound like a crackpot telling someone this. Maybe if they're not looking into it, but that's what's going on.
Yeah. And on top of all this, you know, to maybe roll into the next, maybe final topic, Biden's out there talking about how great the economy's doing. And I can't fathom anybody buying. I've been speechless so many times listening to him talk about how great the economy's doing, literally saying people have more savings, they're more financially stable since he took office. This is lunacy. There's no money to be had. You have to spend it on everything. How are you? I mean, at this point, this extra 16 cents that you saved the first 4th of July weekend on hot dogs, it was a better economic strategy than what's going on now. You know what I mean? That's I guess they're still expecting us to live off that 16 cents we saved 2 4th of Julys ago.
4th of July is right around the corner, right? So we could have roach and sawdust hot dogs, you know, for lunch there.
People are going to realize on 4th of July just how bad inflation is when you can't afford to get all the food, get all the propane, get all the decorations, and fill up your car all on one paycheck. Not going to happen.
No,
not this 4th of July.
And yeah, I mean, the low hanging fruit, things are bad, right? I'll give a personal example. I told you about this, right? Like 2 days ago, I knew things were bad. I knew the stock market was bad and just everything's going to shit, right? You know, the crypto and whatnot. I was like, you know what? I ain't gonna stress myself out. I just ain't gonna look at my investments or whatnot for a while because what's the point? You know, getting hammered. Mm-hmm. I decided to put that to an end 2 days ago, and it was a lot worse than I even I thought. I'm just down 30% in general on all my investments in the course of like through let's say around February, right? When something occurred in February, right? I don't even think I need to point it out, but since then I'm down like 30%. After over the past couple of years, I was up like, I think it was like 40-50%. Like everything is gone that I took years for me to like make smart investment decisions. And what am I going to be fine? Yes, I'm going to be fine because I know how to, survive and whatnot. But what about someone with a 401k, right? And they were like just about to retire and someone
Not
who like,
anymore.
or was someone who was just gambling like with whatever money they had in the stock market. They don't have anything left after. Boy, they're fucked.
Put 80 grand in Bitcoin.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's just your poor person who doesn't have any investments, right? They're just the price of everything. If you're living from paycheck to paycheck and your paycheck is not going up, but the gas is not going up, the amount of money you have is shrinking every week.
Yeah.
You have less and less and less. You're going to go into debt. You're going to use credit cards. You know how the interest rates are on that. People are in big trouble, man. But no, best economy ever.
Yeah.
Best in the world.
I'm tired of people saying that the economy's not doing good. This is Putin's fault. Do you understand? If the status of our economy was Putin's fault, that would mean Putin has way more control over the American economy than anybody. The guy could sign an executive order and jack up the price of gas. If this is truly Putin's fault, then that means he's winning this Ukraine war. Okay? The media will tell you Ukraine is winning. But if it's Putin who is causing all of our economic hardships during the greatest and strongest economy, how does this sentence make any sense that that this is the greatest and strongest economy we ever had, but Putin is causing all the inflation that we have?
We're seeing record levels of inflation and hard economic times.
Yeah.
But it's the greatest economy we've ever had at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would mean Russia is winning this war because we're just funneling money into Ukraine and it's being destroyed because Russia clearly has this power over us. And then I think you shared it too, where Russia actually has like a surplus going on right now. They made so much money because of all the sanctions and shit. Right. And Putin came out and he's like, Americans are so stupid that they think like Russia isn't economically
sovereign.
Sovereign.
Like they can make independent, like they can make their own things and survive without access.
Exactly.
To the global economy.
Everybody paints this picture of Russia as this backwards country that's just poor and broke, when in actuality, it's really not the case. You know what I mean?
They're fine.
Yeah, they're fine. Even with
they're
all
having
these
they're making their ruble, right, is at like record high value. Right?
Oh no, Pornhub and McDonald's are leaving Russia. Okay, we'll make our own porn and grill our own burgers. Not that difficult to figure out. Like,
yeah, they'll pay some poor Ukrainian person to flip burgers or whatever in the Donbass region. Yeah, man. I mean, that's a hell of a topic to get into again, the war in Ukraine, but it's backfired, right? And they're singing the praises. Yeah, on the ground, maybe it doesn't look so, right? Because I mean, what do we really know about like the tactics of war and the strategy of movement of troops and things like that? I think there's more to that even than meets the eye. I think the real play there is to control those regions that were on the border to begin with, and the rest was like a show just to.
Who said it? Jeff said it, right? It's the outskirts of the Atlantic Empire,
right,
that is being infringed upon. So we need to go full force on it.
Yeah, but I mean, they're doing fine. Yeah, and Putin did give a speech the other day, basically stating all of this. Like, we're doing great. We're able to make our own stuff here. We can make our own cupcakes here if we need to. We'll be all right. It's us.
Meanwhile, Biden just wants foreign. We don't build nothing in America. No import, no export. The American first policy was it destroyed democracy.
Yeah, I was trying to find a video of the press secretary the other day and Peter Doocy. I remember it clearly what was going on. I can't find it, so I'll recant it. This goes back to a lot of what you're saying and the stock market. Peter Doocy asked the press secretary, like when the president first took over, he was touting a lot of the stock gains as like, that like he was doing a good job, President Biden, because there were some gains when when he first took in. Like it took some time for everything to just completely fall off the cliff. And Peter
Yeah, a
Ducey
month.
was like, Peter Ducey was like, now obviously that's not the case. Is the president going to take accountability for the decline, as he did take accountability for the increase back then? And the press secretary's answer was like, well, with inflation and with Putin and with this and with that. Like, she didn't even answer the fucking question.
No.
Like, is the stock market, when the stock market was doing good, it was his responsibility. Now it's doing bad. What does he have to say about that? Well, inflation and this, it's like, it's like you're watching something that doesn't even make any sense.
We're watching a bad movie.
Like there's a book in front, right, of her, or the paper, and like these are the things I can say, and it doesn't matter if like question asked not applicable. I have to refer back to points anyway. So like you can ask me, hey, do you like bananas? I'll be like, well, my watch,
Putin.
my watch says it's 8:45. Like it doesn't even fucking make any logical sense. Like you're not even watching a real conversation. The whole thing is just, it's getting worse. Right. We said it with Jen Psaki. We talked about this right before we started recording, right? Where she just could not bring herself to admit that eating good and getting exercise was good for you. I was like, that's weird. Something's wrong with that. I mean, if you watch some of these things now, like the questions asked and the responses are not compatible. No, they don't make any sense. At least Jen Psaki was good at like tap dancing around and lying.
She was a great liar. I actually miss her compared to this woman.
She was good at her job. Now the new person is just like, here's the things I can say, and if it doesn't matter if they're not applicable, I'm just
there's
gonna
that
say them
picture.
anyway. Rock,
what's this?
Ice cream. Like she's gonna. That's what we're gonna get to. They're just gonna start screaming out random phrases. It's not even gonna make any sense.
What's the secretary's name? The press secretary's name?
Karine Jean-Pierre or something like that.
Okay, and then the tranny admiral.
Oh, the trans admiral. Well, that's such a badass title, the trans admiral.
Yeah, but there's a picture of the two of them holding the pride flag.
Karine Jean-Pierre. Okay.
And I said to somebody, I was like, it's amazing. They check off so many social boxes, but they don't check off any boxes for qualified for the job.
Right, for merit. Right. Yeah. Yes, that is a problem with the whole pushing of just equity. Right. There's equality is great, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, but equity is different. Equity means they're just gonna like hand you something that you have no merit to have. Right. And that's what happens when you make diversity hires.
And
like
remember,
Kamala
Biden
Harris,
ran
right?
on equity, not equality.
No, right, exactly, right. What was Kamala Harris, right? She was a diversity hire, right? He hired her specifically because she was a woman and a woman of color. He didn't hire her because she was qualified. And look, she's the most unpopular fucking vice president ever.
The only person more unpopular than Joe Biden. That's amazing.
Right. And then look at Karine Jean-Pierre, right? Again, she's, I believe, one of the first persons of color that's press secretary. She's also, I'm pretty sure, lesbian.
He's gay,
right? So I mean, boxes being checked, but then when it comes to the actual the press hearings, she's awful at it. She's just reading from a list of random things to say. That
somebody at work was like, this is terrible. At least when Psaki was up there, like, you got some type of an answer. He's like, with her, you're left with more questions than you are with answers. Like there's nothing being purveyed to the people. She's like, at least Psaki, she might have not been great for the job, and she might have been a snake, but she at least was like somewhat qualified for the job.
Yeah, she was good at the job, man. I mean, look, and they're not even good at picking the diversity hires either, right? I mean, this goes back to command economy, right? They even have a command economy of like selecting people who work in government.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me the free market of press secretaries cannot produce a better black gay woman than Karine Jean-Pierre? 100% there has to be out there somewhere. Way better than her. But they can't. But because they want to control everything, they picked one that's not so good.
Yeah, one of my earliest statements on the beginning of this podcast when we first started 130 some odd episodes ago. I don't care that the Speaker of the House is a woman. I care that the Speaker of the House is a decrepit old alcoholic lizard lady.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. That's what bothers me about her.
Yeah. There's always the famous, like analogy people use, like, do you give a shit what the pilot of your fucking plane looks like? Yeah. Or do you give a shit like he knows how to fly the fucking plane? Right. Because if they start hiring people based on like the way they look and not how good they are at flying planes, planes are going to start dropping from the fucking sky. Right.
Well,
and
give Biden a few more weeks.
Are you going to get on that plane? Probably not. So I think that's something that's used a lot. And it's a good way to put things like that in perspective. Yeah, man. I don't know.
So do you have the tweets of the week or what?
I do.
You want to finish up with that?
Finish up strong with some tweets.
I've been wondering if we need to advertise for tweets of the week or something. So I'm wondering if people are sticking around long enough to actually get to this,
That would mean we'd have to remember that we're going to even do it at the beginning of the episode. We get so hyped up. We're talking about Joe Biden falling off his bike and whatnot. All right, let's start off with this one I got here. It's been a while, so.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
Okay, so from Matthew Dowd, a blue check mark. So you know this one's going to be good. If you think inflation is more important than what happened on January 6th and the ongoing threat to our democracy and freedoms, then you might want to ask yourself where you would have stood if you were in early 1930s Germany. All right.
Well,
Stop.
I would be standing with my face against the wall, and this guy would be wearing a swastika.
That's a great point, because you definitely would. I mean, not only is this an insane point to make, but this person has absolutely zero understanding of history. And I think we talked about this recently, about how there were a lot of factors which led to the rise of the Nazi Party. One of those chief contributing factors were hyperinflation in Germany at the time and after World War I, right? So this person doesn't even make any, yes, inflation is dangerous and it is more important than a dust up at the Capitol, right? Because inflation could lead to the rise of a Nazi fucking administration. That's what we're fighting here.
But it also
on this podcast against.
It also this also signifies that this guy is perfectly fine with going individually. Let's knock it down, because he's virtue signaling here. He's virtue signaling. Let's knock it down to Dowd's personal bank account. If inflation keeps going up, eventually he's not going to be able to afford all his white boy things. But he's okay with going broke as long as January 6th gets solved in his favor. Keep that in mind, because if the January 6th hearings continue and all of a sudden Trump's innocent and all these people are innocent and there was no insurrection, he's going to be very angry. But on top of it, what?
Yeah, go ahead.
On top of it, he's going to be very angry and very broke.
Yeah. If that were to happen and the January 6th commission does not end up in his political favor, you bet your bottom ass he'll probably be storming the Reichstag, right? Yeah. Just like the Hitler and the Nazis did, right? Which is the thing he was trying to allude to, right? The iron law of vote projection. I guarantee you he'll be doing it. All right, so let's go on to I was trying to point out who, what he is too. Of course, he's writer, analyst, got his own website. Yeah, I'm sure things really tough for him. His normal life.
Probably drives a Range Rover.
Yeah. This is yours, God.
Wearing a strap-on penis and testicles at a LA Pride over the weekend, Christina Aguilera performed his song XXX with trans singer Kim Petras. And I think that link right there might be the video of her in the Hulk costume and the giant penis. I hope I didn't do too about Christina Aguilera.
This is from Andy. No, he's got good tweets. The link won't work.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about though.
I mean, this was wildly outrageous. What she hold on, I just want to make sure the second one isn't. Okay, good. Yeah. I'm pretty sure this Trump.
I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling through tweets here. I'm laughing.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. What were you saying?
But you know what? Eventually, there's going to be a fact check saying, "Oh, fact checkers, Joe Biden did not fall on his face; he fell on his arm."
Right.
If you saw this video, that's wild. Look, you want to bring your kids to a drag show. I don't agree with it. Okay. You want to talk about transgenderism, transsexual. You want your kids to be accepting of somebody who might be transgendered. I don't have that big of an argument with you. But to think putting on a 5-foot-long cock and swinging it around in the face of everybody in the front row is is what the transgender community needs, you're out of your fucking mind.
Well, that's the thing
Give
with
me a break.
championing. Yeah, it's bizarre. Who was it? We the People Radio, maybe that tweeted. You know, we went from the nip slip. I don't know if it was them who made it the point. I know they tweeted
they
it.
shared it at least. Yeah.
It was.
We went from outrage of Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson's nip slip to Christina Aguilera waving around a giant fake cock on stage.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's where it's just, that's where culture has gone in the past 20 years. Let's go on to my next one. We got 2 each here. We're 2 in, 1 for Cap, 1 for me. Let's go on to my second one. Sometimes these links, they don't like link for some reason. I have to like copy and paste.
Big brother.
Yeah. What do we got here? Oh, this is
no wonder why this link didn't want to.
All right. So let's get into this, right? So you may be familiar with, because this is a video as well. So a police officer leaks to the media that Patriot Front includes more than one informant, right? So you may be familiar with the Patriot Front. They're those guys that seem to show up at the most opportune time possibly to help the establishment's narrative. They are usually dressed in khakis, blue shirts, and masked up. They are apparently some sort of white nationalist group of racists, right? So over the weekend, it was last weekend, right? There was a gay pride, parade or rally or whatever, I think in Boston. And the Patriot Front guys, they show up, of course, right? Of course they show up to this, right? To now, further domestic terrorism narrative and etc. A lot of people have said that these guys are fucking feds, right? They look like feds. They smell like feds. You never see their faces. It's just very bizarre. So
even after they get handcuffed, they're still in their masks and sunglasses.
Right. It's always on camera. It's very publicized, their arrests, right? They keep getting arrested and they keep showing up.
But they don't do anything else other than they've never successfully followed through on any of their missions, as far as I know. Right. I never read about
they keep getting pinched right away. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the general prevailing thought is that they are feds. So let's listen to what this officer, let me make sure we are sharing sound here. All right.
Basically, conspiracy to riot. People act together. Okay. There's 15 shields in there, spears and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's what it's all about. No, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Like at the same time, hey, if I can educate you guys, I mean, we're not going to be going after law-abiding people, but 33 people load up in the back with a bunch of weapons.
Well, I mean, obviously, that doesn't get suspicious.
Do you know what the original stop was for?
For that.
But how did you know? How did you know that they?
We have informants.
Nice.
So I don't know if you could hear that, Cap. The audio.
I've watched this video.
Yeah. So they say we're not trying to infringe on anyone's rights. That they had a lot of weapons on them, and the person here with the camera asked the police officer, how did you know? How did you know that they had these weapons in the truck or the car or whatever that were out of view? He says, well, we have informants in the group. The police officer says, I mean, it's right there.
Whoops.
It's on camera, right? So now
said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, I mean, look. What does that mean? It means that they're fucking feds, like everybody's been saying, right? There's the story of Gretchen Whitmer, right? The Michigan governor, right? Who got the plan to kidnap her, right? And it ended up turning out that I think it was like 14 out of 16 of the people that were planning on kidnapping her were fucking feds, were FBI agents, right? This doesn't give any, I'm speculating.
You know how
give any like details. How many of these guys were the informants? Was it 14 out of 16? Are these Patriot Front guys again? Because then it's not really a domestic terrorism white nationalist group.
It's an FBI problem.
Group that's they're creating groups that seem to be dangerous and violent. I'm not saying there's not white nationalist racist groups. There are, but I mean this is fucking suspicious.
You know how I know these are all feds?
How?
Because look at how the media operates. Look at how they blast. Look at what the media did to Kyle Rittenhouse, right? You really mean to tell me if there was a group of white supremacists that were going to show up at a gay pride event with weapons, that they wouldn't have every single name up there, everybody's individual pictures? Look at John S. Smith. He's a Trump supporter. He lives from Kalamazoo, blah, blah, blah. They would have everybody's profile up there to show what a white supremacist. If a white supremacist actually ever did anything, and they do, but not on the level that the media can, if Frank James was an actual white guy in a Nazi uniform shooting up the subway system, we'd still hear about him. So there's no way a busload of white supremacists got arrested, not a single mask removed, and not a single name released.
Yeah, I mean, that's bizarre in itself. We didn't show that, but if you looked into this arrest in, I think it was Massachusetts, right? There's photographs of all of them on their knees, handcuffed, and they're all still allowed to be completely anonymous with their sunglasses and masks on. I mean, that's fucking bizarre. Don't cops, like, you know, wouldn't that be the thing you would do when you arrest somebody, is remove anything that's obscuring their face, right? I mean, that's weird, right? And that's it. You don't really hear much else about this. So they're definitely feds. There's something suspicious about that organization. I'm not saying that every single one of them is a fed, but I'll probably say that like 14 out of 16. That ratio seems about the FBI ratio was, you know, in there.
90-10.
90, yeah, like they're like hamburgers. 90, you know, they're lean hamburgers. 90-10. Yeah. All right, we got one more here for the captain, then we'll wrap up this episode. See what we got. I should just push the button. We're on Matthew Dowd's website by accident here. Hang on.
You got a screen
share.
share.
I'm about to. Oh, Zuby, go ahead, go for it.
All right, our buddy Zuby. I wish we could have this guy on. Many of us warned about everything that's now happening in the economy throughout 2020 and 2021, and we're accused of wanting people to die and putting the economy over lives. It's cute how people are feeling shocked now, and your silly lockdowns and mandates saved nobody. This is a fantastic tweet, because from 2019 up until yesterday, if you spoke out against the narrative on anything, you were a conspiracy theorist, you are an extremist, you're a domestic terrorist, you want people to die, you're the worst person. I'm virtue signaling.
I remember a meme. Can I share a
meme?
meme? I remember a meme, right?
It.
And it was, I'm not going to share it, but I remember it vividly because of the point I was trying to make. And it was a picture of a asteroid heading towards Earth. And there was dinosaurs on the ground, and they were looking terrified at the asteroid. And the Tyrannosaurus Rex said to the Triceratops, "Oh no, the economy." The joke they were trying to make is like, oh my God, do we think the dinosaurs were worried about the economy when you know they had this threat that was going to kill them in front of their face? Well, how does that fucking meme look now, right? The economy is in the toilet, and like you're trying to say, people are going to die. Poverty kills people, right? And that was a point a lot of people like Zuby were fucking trying to make back then.
Yeah. So we shouldn't have cared about the economy because grandma's going to die from COVID. So, you know, we should have shut down the economy. We should have locked down people. And now we're you know why people are so shocked? Because for the first time in the past 10 years, because everybody who is a virtue signaling loon grew up in a normal household like we did all throughout the early 2000s and the 90s and the 80s. You know, so it's for the first time in the past decade, they have to deal with their own accountability. I wanted the economy to be shut down because that's what the TV told me was going to be best for my health during COVID. Okay, well, now that we shut down the economy, here we are with a shitty economy.
All right.
You know, and it goes back to, and that, you know, yes, me being the Trump supporter, Trump's speech. If Biden gets into office, you're going to see a depression like you've never seen before. Gas is going to be $6, $7, $8 a gallon. Honey, let's get rid of the SUV. It's a little bit too expensive. It's all like the guy had a crystal ball. It's all coming true. You know, I know Trump has his to blame, and I know what you're going to say about him.
Yes, he has a lion's share to blame as well. But he wasn't wrong. But he has a lion's share of the blame as well. Yeah.
But yeah, we're paying for these ridiculous situations we put ourselves in because we wanted to feel good about ourselves in the moment. And now, you know, we cashed a check that our ass can't, you know, we wrote a check that our ass can't cash. Here's the consequences of that. You know, now you got to wake up.
Yeah.
You know,
your 401k
and if you keep calling for liberal loon socialist shit like this, it's only going to get worse.
Yes, right.
You have to eventually wake up and course correct. I say this at my job all the time. I say there's eventually a number that gas is going to get to And the media is not even going to be able to save Biden. The more you keep hearing about him terminating lease agreements, stopping people from drilling in America, we're going to import it from Saudi Arabia. We're going to spend all this gas to fly over to Saudi Arabia.
The National Reserve, which is supposed to be used in terms of like war, right? Where like we're at a war and we need gas to fuel the tanks.
And you know why? You know why we're draining the National Reserve? Because Trump filled them up during his administration. He did. He did. And people don't understand the National Reserve is an actual reserve for when we need it. And I keep saying, what happens when we run out of the reserve? You're only fixing today's issue, not 2023, 2024's fucking issues. You know, gas is the new ivermectin for the current crisis. American oil is the new ivermectin for the current crisis. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's bad.
These are the consequences.
Yeah, we need to get slave labor built solar panels from China instead. That's what we need.
Yeah,
it's like the vaccine. You know, this is the solar panel. The slave labor created solar panels in China. They're the vaccine for for our inflation, high gas prices. Yes, and ivermectin is American produced oil and gas. Yeah, that's good. I like that. You know, they're going to use that. You know, they're going to use those comparisons and one, so we'll use them too.
And as time goes on, people like us will get criticized. Oh, well, you're racist against Chinese. They'll come up with something to further this agenda to dig us deeper in this hole. You know,
we're right. Yeah, right. You're racist against Chinese people because we don't want to support slave labor in China with Chinese people.
We love slave labor. We hated war for the past 20 years, but I can't wait to get into war with Russia.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. Crazy times. I felt like we covered a lot of things that kind of went under the rug. It's been a weird couple of weeks of the narrative been pointed at one thing only. The gun control debate still up there. I think that's probably going to be it for this week. We are going away. This will be coming out on Monday. Maybe
crank something out early next week, but we'll see.
We'll see. We're going to have Obi-Wan, the finale. We'll review that. And then I think it's probably it, dude. We're going out to Long Island. We're going to have a good time. That's about it. Got to take a break every once in a while. So that's it. Sign us off.
All right, Doom Nation. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. You can go over to 13 Stripes Winery, put in our promo code DOOM to get 10% off your next purchase of wine. Help us save, this country one bottle at a time. Go over to our YouTube page, check out our Doomed reviews. We have been loving Obi-Wan Kenobi. We're going to do some catching up on Miss Marvel. So if that's something that floats your boat,
we'll see. Maybe it's a bit
childish. A little bit too much going on right now.
Yeah, maybe there's a lot going on. The show itself is a little bit on the childish side.
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to commit the amount of effort it takes to creating a podcast episode to all those individual Miss Marvel reviews. It also has gotten a little bit woke, at least in episode 2, somewhat.
But we have a ton of content out there. We just dropped our new cigar review with our buddy Jay Play. So go check that out. So Doom Nation, as always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Adios.